What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fit, Healthy, and most of all, Happy podcast. I am your coach and host, Josh, here with
his co-host and co-coach, KG, and I'm on the microphone.
And what's cool is we're switching it up a little bit today. We're pulling an audible. This is actually, if you're on Video Gang, this is a sunrise podcast. So this is a special one. We have the sunrise coming up. We have a Starbucks. So this episode is going to be on a different level of energy. It's going to be absolutely amazing. We actually just picked up these little portable mics, which I may have just made noise by touching it. So I apologize for that. But what's really cool is this is just audio from like a little button on our shirt. And it's going to be phenomenal, as you can hear. And what's really cool about this is it gives us opportunities to do some podcasts in some really cool environments and cool situations. And it makes it a lot easier for us to bring on guests. So we have some things in the pipeline. We actually have Coach Armando on for the upcoming Thursday episode, which is going to be killer. So lots of incredible things happening over here with the Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast. And within that, we're actually going to start with our primary question for today's pod. What is it, Kyle?
This question is, whenever I go into a bulk, it only goes to my belly. Any tips or tricks to actually make it go to the muscles? So this is a fantastic question, especially because it seems like a lot of people are in that phase right now where they do want to gain muscle. I guess you could call it a lean gain process or a lean bulk process. And honestly, this is probably one of the hardest things for most people to do because there's so many different variables involved. It's very hard to stay consistent with it. A lot of times you can just question yourself when you're doing it by yourself because you start to see a little bit of belly fat come in. You start to see things go wrong. And so I would say the first and most important thing is accepting what you want to do within this entire process of lean bulking, of lean gaining, and being aware of that. That's going to be the first and most important step because, for example, myself, I've decided I'm going to bulk up and I'm going to gain about 20 pounds. And I know that a good chunk of it may be fat, but that's going to be the process that I'm going to go down. And I have a reason for it, and I've talked about it. It's for a powerlifting competition against a buddy. Anyways, whereas some people are very specific, they only want to gain full muscle, like no fat at all. You're going to be making progress a lot slower. You have to kind of understand where you're at there. So obviously the mental game is going to be the most important thing. And that's why I want to start with it, especially because so many people struggle with this where they say, hey, I'm going to bulk up, I'm going to gain muscle, and they do it for like a week or so, and then they just back off, or they just do it and they never actually make progress because they never stick to it. So the first and most important thing is getting that mindset right.
For me, I've done a huge bulk, even just to showcase my journey. I was like 150, 160 pounds, really into skateboarding, really skinny, really lanky. And from there, I did this massive bulk to up to 240, and I put on a ton of muscle. It was freaking awesome. I was fortunate too that I did this while I was growing. This was in a period of time where I was actually still a teenager, and pretty much like from when I was like 15 to 17, I suppose. So it worked quite well with that. I got strong, I got bigger, I had my hormones pumping. I had everything going for me. And I did a little bit of a hero bulk, and I would be a little bit extreme. I mentioned this before. I would get like 5 McChickens at McDonald's for lunch when they were really cheap. And it just wasn't a great way to go about it, honestly, because I got really big and I got really muscular. But I just remember I felt like my skin was greasy. I remember one day at university, I was walking up the stairs and I was just dead. And I think I only walked like the second floor. I'm like, okay, I don't care. This isn't worth it. And for me too, and as I've obviously matured in my lifting journey and I've helped a lot of people alongside their bulks, what I like to really recommend to people is that a bulk is like, it's cut from the same cloth as a cut. It's on the other side of the spectrum. It's like hot and cold, if you will. And what I mean by that is if a bulk is like hot and a cut is cold, you wouldn't just say I'm going to approach my cut by just seeing how much I can lose this week and just starving yourself and trying to get away with only eating like 1 pickle a day or something, trying to lose 10 pounds in a week. It's not going to go well. You're going to lose muscle. It's going to be non-optimal. And with bulks, when you have this just let's see what happens mentality and you're just eating as much as you can, you're not being too mindful towards it, and you're just trying to shove on weight, I find that's where it's a little bit directionless, and you can suffer as a result of that because it can be very hard pulling out of this cycle of just I'm bulking. And what's hard too is the psychology of putting on a bit of fat because there'll be days where you feel big and muscular and you feel on top of the world, and there'll be a day where one of your buddies will come up and grab your stomach, at least if you're a guy and you're in our friend group, it's kind of a thing, and people are like, you're getting a little bit of chunk there. Like it's inevitable to happen, but when it's calculated, it's a lot more comfortable. So even for Kyle right now, he has a rate of gain of 1 to 2 pounds a week, maybe 1 to 2, I believe. And he knows what he needs to hit to be within that. He knows if he's doing 3 and he's been slacking, that's not optimal. And like I said with the cut too, usually when we're cutting, we try to keep it as controlled as possible so you're not starving, and so you're still losing a good amount of weight and still putting and maintaining a little bit of muscle. So when you look at bulks like that and you take them more serious and don't just use it as an excuse to eat normal and then just eat one garbage meal at night. And I also find too, like if you really optimize with the right macronutrients, so getting in really whole, hearty, healthy sources of carbs, carbohydrates can be incredibly anabolic and a surplus, and really leaning into great sources versus just having an extra 1,000 calories of oil and grease from the local chicken spot. So by rephrasing that and trying to fuel your body with the best, using those calories to train hard, and there's a trade-off of eating like garbage. You're going to feel more lethargic, you're going to have less energy, you're going to be less optimized, whereas when you're taking it serious, you're eating good foods, you're still having fun foods, that's going to go directly into that training. You're going to put on more muscle, it's going to be more optimal. And I find if it's just going to your stomach, you might be perhaps not bulking very hard during the week, and then on the weekend you just pig out, order whatever, and just take that shortcut. And that is not consistent. You want to be consistent day after day in that surplus, really monitoring that, monitoring your rate of gain, taking your photos, taking your measurements. And another great tip you can utilize is mini cuts. Mini cuts are phenomenal where you can take a pace back. Let's say I'm bulking at 4,000 calories for sake of simplicity, and let's say my maintenance is 3,000. So if that's the case and I'm doing this bulk, I could pull back with a little mini cut for 1 to 2 weeks. I go just below my maintenance, 2,800 calories. I could even perhaps try being at maintenance the first week. Then sometimes what I'll do for my clients is we'll do a little bit of a mini cut. It allows you to clean up. It allows you to showcase, okay, this is what's more realistic. And it's a bit of a reset because your body can adapt downwards with calories. It can also adapt upwards. So by optimizing for all these different factors, you can cover your bases and you can really ensure that it's a successful bulk.
Yeah, fantastic. Honestly, if you don't have the data for this stuff, it gets so complex because you just don't really understand what's happening. So even for me, when I send Josh my spreadsheet each week, I can see my actual gain in terms of the overall average, and I can see my numbers. If I were to just be kind of hitting random numbers and not knowing exactly what I'm doing, it's just going to be so hard to make those changes accordingly. And even when it comes down to it, I do find that so many people, like this is the hardest phase, honestly, to me personally, because you have to be so disciplined. Like Josh said, the mindset of just like, oh, I'm bulking. Like you just, I know I've done this before. You're just like, I can have whatever I want, whenever I want. And you make little jokes with your buddies like, you're cutting, huh? I'm bulking, I can do whatever I want. And it's just, it becomes such a tough process because then you're like, next thing you know, you're like, man, my stomach's just growing and nothing else is growing. And it's because you've had that mindset. But the other thing is strength training. It's so easy to just do what you were doing before because that's what you're used to. Whereas when I go into more of a lean bulk phase, like my mentality changes. I think I've got so many extra calories to work with. My energy's higher. Let's put this to use. Like let's change my training program. And so even within our clients, when we do a lean bulk phase, not only do the nutrition protocols change, but also the workouts change based off of what your goals are and your total situation there, knowing that you are going to be in a bit of a surplus. And that was a fantastic question. I really hope that helped you today.
And now we're going to go ahead and pivot into our quotes. We had some killer quotes last night. We did a live stream with all of our coaches here at ColossusFit, which is absolutely fantastic. And it was really just fun having all of us on the couch. This is just for our private Facebook group for coaching clients. But there was just, it's funny seeing how impactful quotes are to all the coaches and just seeing them being darted out. And there were some killer ones yesterday. So I'm curious what Kyle's quote is for today.
Yeah, for my quote today, it is, in life, we will never exceed what we think we are worth. So this one here is just obviously about having belief in yourself. And I think I heard it from Ed Milet recently. I started listening to his podcast again, and it's fire. He's just such a great speaker. And I really, really like his topics. And I just thought that this was such a good concept, especially because like a lot of people kind of want more, right? It's so easy to want more and say we're going to get more and whatnot, but then never actually believe it. So I really do believe that we have to believe that we're worth so much more to be able to get that. And, this can come in so many different ways. And I could even just say it in terms of fitness and health, that's going to be the topic that I'll obviously talk about. But if you believe that you should be the fittest version of yourself, the healthiest person in your family, someone who lives until a certain age at the, pain-free and whatnot, like, you can start to achieve that. Whereas if you just start to think like, And it's funny because I was looking on a reels yesterday and I saw someone say like, once you're 30, like, and he has a video where it's like your knees are cracking and your back's killing and all this stuff. And it's like funny because all the people are commenting saying like, so true, I feel that way. And it's okay to have a joke, that's no problem. But I just truly believe that people have a lot of negative thoughts within like their body and their limitations and their physique. And that's all they start to believe. And if that's all you believe that you're worth and that's how it's going to be, that's what's going to happen. So that's going to be my quote for today.
My quote is, everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of discomfort. And this is one of my favorite quotes because it's uncomfortable being uncomfortable, and any type of growth is just inherently uncomfortable. It's hard getting to a next level. And one thing I try to remind myself of is whenever you're feeling a little bit of stress or you're feeling challenge or there's a lot going on in your situation, like that discomfort, that challenge is just the pre-example of the change you're going to see, and like you have to go through that to get to that next level. And even examples like going from one child to two, transitioning out of university to not just being in a set rigid structure and having to figure things out for yourself, like whatever it is, there's always a little bit of challenge and change that comes alongside that. But when you're in that, instead of looking at it like, oh, this is so horrible. Another quote I love too is you can't complain that you have a lot of food on your plate when your goal was to eat. And I love that quote as well because same principle, like especially if you want to work towards harder things or you want to progress, whatever it is, whether it's like emotionally, socially, financially, physically, all these things, there's always that aspect of discomfort. Like if you start in the gym, it's uncomfortable getting there. It's uncomfortable crafting the time out in your schedule. It's hard learning the different machines you're using. It's not as fun actually learning how to eat high protein and working protein into your meal. It takes time. And yes, it's not as fun for a period of time, but ultimately it'll become something you'll enjoy. And to Kyle's point, I'm constantly reminded, like if I live in asymmetry from how I know I should live ever, like let's say I have a really bad meal, I have a really bad day or a bad workout or whatnot, you really feel the effects of that. And it makes you realize how much you appreciate these challenges you have and the things you've wanted to strive towards. And like Kyle said, I think going into his quote, it's a metric of putting yourself first and showing that care for yourself. And even though it's hard sometimes to have that higher level of thought, like if you're like, I need to be up early tomorrow, I got a big day ahead, I'm going to get to bed on time. As much as I want to be scrolling mindlessly, I'm not going to do that for myself. And really just protecting your time, protecting what you want to work towards, and embracing the challenge when you're in it. It's totally okay to be within challenge. And I think reframing it from like, oh, this is so horrible, to like, this is my opportunity to grow and level up and really adapt to just taking on more.
Yeah, honestly, I like that. Even just making this all happen, like sitting here right now in the content house, like Josh and I were sitting there a couple weeks ago and we're like, hey, we should do something. Josh is like, all right, booked. And it was just like, it's uncomfortable, like doing something where it's just like, oh, it's so easy to kind of follow like the consistent norm that you're used to, but to actually just like do that next thing that's like, you kind of feel like, oh, is it worth it? Like, should we do it? Like, there's always these different thoughts, but kind of going into my thoughts here, it's just, I'm so grateful to just be kind of sitting here, and we have some amazing team members here as well. Like right now, we're actually filming this at 7:05 a.m. right now as you're listening to this, which is awesome. So you're catching, like I said, like Josh said, a nice glimpse to a morning sunrise podcast. But just the ability to be able to help so many people with amazing people on our team, just kind of sitting around the table as we all had our laptops out, checking out client transformations, some wins. It's so incredible to be able to just do this. And even if I were to look back like 7 to 8 years ago, thinking that this would be like what we've created, there was a quote or something like, your future self will be so proud of you, or something along the lines of that. And like when I kind of bring it all the way back to there, I'm like, man, I'm so grateful to just like be talking to all of you right now, but also even yesterday when we were talking to our live stream with our Facebook community, just so many awesome people popping in there, amazing wins from our 60-day challenge. So that's been completed, so many great things. And even when we were sitting there with our coaches, we're like, there's so many amazing people who just showed up for themselves. And so when I sit down and I think of like what's been created, I'm just, all of that came from discomfort. All of that came from just like not knowing if what we're about to do is right and if we should do it, and bringing on that next team member and just like taking that next step. So when I look back at it, I'm just very grateful that we're here and, just in this amazing house that we had for a few days, and we filmed some incredible content.
Absolutely. And for my thoughts, I'm going to save some of them because obviously we're filming a lot of content, and the goal here is we have a fantastic gym close-ish to us, probably about hour 15 for me, about hour 5 from Kyle. And this is like Pure Muscle. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's a bigger gym, and it's just far enough to be annoying to drive there and drive back and do a long workout. So we're like, hey, let's get a spot, let's get some killer content, let's go there with the mind of like, how can we really add a ton of value? So obviously we're making a lot of reels, a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of stories, but case in point, you're going to be missing out if you don't follow us on Instagram. Our Instagram is at ColossusFit. Maybe you've heard me say it. Maybe you've heard me spell it, ColossusFit 100 times. But if you haven't followed, you're missing out because, like Kyle said, being there for yourself is also surrounding yourself with accountability and encouragement. And I assure you, our page is there to build you up, to encourage you, to give you tips, to help you just develop in your journey and be your best self physically, mentally, and to really just challenge you there. So if you're not following us, you're missing out. The other reason you need to follow us is for our client shoutout, which is actually my wife, Olivia, which is cool. So we have now, this photo was taken 5 months after giving birth, and then the photo was just before, a couple weeks before, which was cool, my son, Matthew. And this transformation is awesome because this was our second time going at it. And if you know me, I'm big on how can we improve? How can we do better? And even looking back from the first pregnancy to now, like we really sat down and brainstormed, like what can we do? And what's amazing about this transformation, it's been really amazing. Obviously, I've helped people, quite a few people through pregnancy, but being so close to it, it was a really nice challenge, seeing the psychology of it and really understanding my role too, of like just being a leader and being encouraging there. And one of the biggest things I would say about this transformation, which is 25 to 35 pounds, I can't remember, but you can see it on the post, and in the 5 months, and obviously some of that weight's the baby. But what's incredible about this is she's only 5 pounds up from her pre-pregnancy weight, which is amazing. And it's not all about weight. Your weight will change. There's so much that goes into this, but this is truly being like a great opportunity for us to challenge, like how can we have balance? How can we have health? Obviously, she's having a ton more calories because she's breastfeeding. So it's pretty funny some days. I'm like, you're eating like the same as me. Like, what the heck? Which is pretty jokes. But to achieve this transformation, it really came from like embracing the suck, if you will, especially earlier in the pregnancy. I told her, I said, it's going to suck, especially towards the tail end. You're going to have to, even with the work schedule, we're going to have to get up a bit early. I'll see how I can support you with that. So you can get out to the gym, get in there, get it done. Even the days you don't want to do it, just get in there, get it done. And I'm never going to be pregnant, so I can't relate to that side of things. And I'm like, listen, that sucks. We have to identify that, but how can we make the most of our situation? And this is something I challenge my clients with a lot too, because I don't have your exact situation. No one else has your exact situation. We all have like boons and curses, if you will. We have things that go for us. Maybe we have incredible flexible work schedule, but maybe we have low willpower, or we have insanely high willpower, but we just have no time. We're so consumed. But case in point, you can either cry about it or you can work with what's available to you. And in this case, it required her to get up earlier. We tried to eat the best foods possible and really just get her eating a lot of protein, a lot of vegetables, and just a ton of volume of food to really support that. Post-pregnancy as well, obviously transitioning into the gym intelligently, getting back into strength training, had to shake her world a little bit there from the end of pregnancy training, where obviously it's not going to be as intense. You're just trying to stay alive at that point. You're a little bit sore. And then really transitioning to like, hey, you need to have that oomph back. You need to really push it. And I peeked ahead, and I'll talk more about the oomph with the next question, but really just giving it your all and really being tactical about it. And what's amazing about what we do is like we use it in our own lives. Like I have my own spreadsheet, Kyle has a spreadsheet. We coach each other, we build each other up, we help the other coaches. Obviously with Olivia too, like coaching her through this process, just as we've coached thousands of other people with our transformations. And like these systems work no matter where you are. And I think if you're putting it off till the future, you're doing yourself such a disservice. And even for herself, the whole pregnancy, I said, imagine how good you'll feel like just being yourself like a 5-6 months after or a year after, like versus just putting it off and saying, oh, I'll get to it later and later, and then things will pop up. And like even now as you encounter different barriers as a parent, like your potty training, your kids learning to walk, and now you're baby proofing it, like there's always something that will say, oh, I'll do this later. But it's like, how can I tackle what's in front of me now? How can I make the most of it? And how can I thank my future self for it? And obviously you can see more of her tips in the post, which is absolutely fantastic. But yeah, shout out Olivia, she did great. And shout out Olivia's coach too.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's amazing to see just the work put in, and honestly, just it's so inspiring. I like what Josh said about thinking of like your future self, because it's so hard in that present moment to think of what you want 6 months from now, 12 months from now. But
And even a point to that, I said, your goal, like, you know how good it's going to feel that people say, do you have kids? Like, what? Or you have a kid? And it's like, I have 2 kids, right? And what's cool is she's gotten that compliment quite a lot recently. And like, it's funny, like, you can motivate yourself with these little silly things. And even with Kyle, he's doing a big bulk. And I said, you know, if someone comes up to you at the gym, they're like, man, in Florida, you got jacked. You look huge. Like, it's silly, yes, it's a little superficial, but like if you can lean into those things that inspire you and will kind of ground you throughout that journey, it's very inspiring. And like when you know you're working towards it and you have a goal that excites you, it's going to motivate you way more than just being like, oh, I'll do my best, we'll see what happens. So set some big goals and like you'll be surprised how you see them. And like you can't aim to be perfect either. Like it's always a learning process, and that's why I love reflection, because the first time to the second time, like the process has been so improved. And obviously I know what to do from numbers and I know how to encourage, but it was really cool living within it. And it's great even refining that process as a coach. And what's amazing about coaching is we've refined that process over a decade at this point. We've been coaching for a decade, which is amazing. And I've really learned what works, how different people can be motivated in different ways, encouraging them in their situations, like where to put your focus. And I know I went off on this a bit, but it's incredibly true.
I think it's something that needs to be talked about more, especially because there's so many people who struggle, especially because they don't know what next step to take, or even if they are following a workout plan or someone tries to help them, usually it's not as customized. So having all this stuff being taken into consideration, it does make such a big difference. And even we've had a few new moms recently message us, and even when I touch base with them, I let them know like it's your situation is so different, and we have to take that into consideration for your workout routine, for your overall recovery protocols, your nutrition. Like there's so much more than just a 21-year-old bodybuilder following their plan. It's going to be very different than a 30-year-old mom or whatever numbers we're talking about here. And that's where I think you really need someone by your side. And we're going to do something a little fun here just to celebrate, obviously, Olivia's transformation, but as well as all the amazing moms and overall parents that we've helped over the years, because once again, everything is fully customized, and that's why we see such great success. If you're looking to level up and have something customized to you, and you just are struggling on your journey, you're not sure where to start, you maybe have a couple kids and you're just like, this isn't working for me, send us a message with the keyword mom life. It's going to be a little bit of a different one, but message us on Instagram, and we are looking to take on a few people and just show you that you have what it takes to get you back to that pre-pregnancy weight and just reach new levels that you never thought possible, because it is possible. You just need the right accountability and the right person by your side. So mom life to Instagram, and we can't wait to help some of you awesome people.
Yeah, moms have my utmost respect. It's funny, after having 2 kids, my own mother, I say, okay, I have a lot more appreciation. And if your parents were like mine when you were a kid, or your mom, would be like, you should appreciate all I've done for you. And it's funny seeing the other side of that, like how much goes through it: pregnancy, birth, raising them, challenging them, like dealing with the screaming. Like it's pretty funny. And one thing I like to say to moms, because I have so much respect for moms, is just like, it's so all encompassing, and there's just so much love and care and time and attention given. And it's like, you're so focused on your children that it's really easy to put yourself to the side and forget about yourself. And that can come at an expense one day, because like 18 years later, you're like, my kids are older, but you don't feel yourself. Like Kyle said, your knees are shot, your back shot. You don't feel like you're where you could be. Like that's where having someone to hold you accountable and to have someone on your side. And that's what I love, like being there for a mom, be like, listen, I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you find solutions. I'm here solely to help care for you as you're focused on your family, your career, your kids, your million other things. So that's where having a coach is so powerful. And like, especially through pregnancy, especially with new kids, especially with really anything, like having someone fully there. Like my only job is to be there for your fitness, your health, your mental health, anything around that. So don't miss out on that mom life opportunity, because that'll be a really fun one, and we'll do something special if you reach out with that keyword. But into our second question, I feel like I'm doing all the right things but not progressing in the way I should. What am I missing? So what I was saying earlier about that oomph is, I can easily go to the Olympics, line up with Usain Bolt, line up with everyone. I can sprint. I have no problem sprinting. It's really not that hard. You just run as fast as you can. There's going to be a massive, massive difference between me and Usain Bolt. There's going to be a massive, massive difference from me and probably any high school kid who actually trains sprinting. And that's just an example of getting better at what you're doing, is really optimizing into the process. It's all the same things. We're all lifting weights. We're all trying to eat healthy. We're all recovering. but it's really trying to do these things better and to improve the quality and intensity of how you do them. And if you're doing all the right things, you're not seeing progress, and I see this all too often. Typical avatar, let's call them Kyle. Kyle comes in the gym and Kyle's doing his workouts. He's on his phone on the adductor machine. He cuts it a little bit short. He looks at his watch and he thinks, instead of doing my hour today, I'll do 15 minutes. I'll go do 30 minutes of cardio and then I'll get on the sauna so I get a good sweat. He's in the gym just like me. He's just doing the wrong things. After his workout, he has a fantastic, healthy meal. He goes, he spends $30, double chicken, gets a ton of vegetables, has the best meal possible, goes on with his day, but late at night, he's eating a bag of chips, staying up till 3 a.m. and rinsing and repeating. Technically, he's eating healthy meals, he's working out, but he's not optimizing that process. And that's why we like to say, how can you optimize that macro? How can you get to a deeper level? And especially with working out, if you're leaving 5, 10, even 4 reps in the tank, your results are going to be so different from someone who's leaving 1 to 2 reps in the tank. And that's why we like to give that general rule of thumb of an 8 out of 10 intensity, because that's where you're really going to see change. But that's where it's so uncomfortable. And recently, Tom Platz, he's like a legend for leg development. I love when he said, when you're working out and you think you're done, you have 5 more. And I've been using this lately because I've been thinking, okay, I'm at my RIR 1 or 2. I've been lifting for forever. I'm a pretty strong person. I know it 100%. And I constantly humble myself by how much I'm selling myself short. Because I'll get my reps, I'll go, and I won't get 5 more, but I'll get 2 more, and I'll be like, I could probably, gun to my head, do 1 more. So I'm really realizing I'm shorting myself 2 reps. And like, it becomes a game of inches when you want big progress. And it sounds so silly, but like I said, by being in that uncomfortable zone where it's really heavy, it's eating you up, it's killing you, like that's where you'll see a lot of muscular development. It's the same with nutrition. It's like winning those little moments, winning more of the sum, being better more often than you're being worse, I suppose. So to me, that's what makes a big difference. It's not just about doing the right things, it's about doing the right things well.
And it's about doing the right things well consistently. So even a reels that I'm going to be filming on a whiteboard is showcasing that someone who thinks that they're having the right amount of calories during the week, like let's say they have about 1,500 from Monday to Thursday, they ate their meal prep, they did so well, they focused on themselves, and then from the weekend they don't input anything into the tracker, they kind of just go out, they're social, all that other stuff. They bump their calories up to 3,500, which is very realistic and very easy to do, and they're a weekend warrior, right? They're actually potentially in a surplus, but they feel like they've been doing all the right stuff because they've hit their workouts, they've done their HIIT classes, they've done their cardio, all that stuff, but then the weekend kind of let them carry away. And that's why consistency is often the hardest part. And I don't want to say that, like, there are unfortunately just a lot of people who think they're doing the right stuff, and you have to ask yourself, like, what is it that I think is the right stuff, right? Because there's people who will have their specific teas and their drinks and like kind of just feel like they're doing it, but they're missing out on the biggest thing. They've never downloaded MyFitnessPal or a tracker app because they're scared to get addicted to it, and then they're just not aware of the data there. So it's like, what is right and what's considered right? And I find very often when I have these conversations with people, we notice that they're usually focusing on the micro and the smallest things that aren't moving the needle. The other thing to ask yourself is like, what would you consider to be like progress? Like, what is it exactly that you're trying to improve? So if there's some people who have like really unrealistic expectations, so let's say they've eaten poorly for 2 years and they're trying to get into it and they're 2 weeks into their journey and they haven't seen the scale go down as much, we might just be expecting things a little bit too quickly. And oftentimes you just kind of have to be focused in on what actually progress would look like for you and become super dialed in on that. But Josh had some great tips, so I'm just going to leave that one there.
All right, for our final question for today, how would you properly warm up? Sometimes I find my body isn't ready for all the heavy lifting and I jump into it too quickly.
Yeah, so breaking down a warm up, it's going to look different for each person, honestly. So it's hard to give some people want to do longer ones, some people like jumping into it a bit quicker. Josh and myself are more of like a very you could say specific, but we make the most of, let's say, a couple minutes getting into it, right? There's some people who will lay there for 30 minutes, foam roll, they need everything. And then there's some people who don't do nothing at all. We try to actually just be useful with that little bit of time. Now, for a lot of people, you might want to just do some sort of light cardio beforehand just to get, the juices flowing. And honestly, something like a Stairmaster, an incline walk, a little bike or whatever the case is could be a great start. I usually walk before I go to the gym anyways, like just previously. I feel pretty warmed up. So I usually personally jump right into specific dynamic stretches. So I just try to get moving, and that's going to be the best thing. And you just have to really feel it out. And some days you're going to need more, some days you're going to need a little bit less. But I find that if you do a tiny bit of cardio, whether it's a couple minutes of moving, and you do some sort of like swinging around, so leg swings are great for leg day. Arm swings are great for upper body day, stuff like that, as well as any banded movement. So we kind of jump into some joint mobility. So for an upper body day, let's just say I'm doing chest day, back day, whatever it is, I'll just take my band, also do some band pull aparts. I'll do some band over and backs, and I'll just kind of get moving. And yeah, once again, there's no right way to do it, and that's going to be usually kind of what I do. And then I'll just jump into some warm-up sets using bench press as an example. I'll just do the bar, I'll do 135, and I'll start jumping up as well. And it usually takes less than 5 minutes for me personally, but yeah, that's kind of how I would approach it, and everyone's really different for that one.
Yeah, and I find even this question, the answers in the question. So even here, the individual said, I find my body isn't ready for all the heavy lifting, and I jump into it too quickly. So as simple as it sounds, don't jump into it too quickly. If I'm going to squat 405, I've used this example before. I'll do my leg kicks, then I'll do the bar, and then I'll do 135, then I'll do 225, then I'll do 315, then maybe I'll even do a 365, then I'll do a 405. Everyone's different. I call them little bites, if you will. Like, you're not just going to swallow your entire meal in one bite. You're going to take little bites. And when you want to warm up too, if you're like, oh my gosh, I've done my squats, I've done my RDLs, but like these are just killing me right now, these hip thrusts, like I don't feel warm for them. You don't have to like jump into your working weight. Just because it's midway in your workout, you could still warm up with just doing no weight or the bar or just the machine, whatever it may be, and then start to warm your way into it. I find like one of the most overlooked forms of warming up is just doing more actual warm-up sets or activation sets of that specific exercise. Obviously, this will add a little bit of time, but this is such a great way to warm up exactly what you're going to be doing anyways. And like, this is something I've taken advantage of. Like, even late in my workout, like I used to, if I did no triceps, but I had tricep pushdowns, I would just jump into my weight. Lately, I've just been doing maybe like 50% of my weight, squeezing it out, really just warming up my muscles, getting ready. Then I don't need a super long weight, and then I'll kind of get into my active set. And like, it's a really easy way to warm up. Obviously, Stairmaster, treadmill, can't go wrong with any of these things. But we want to thank you for tuning in today. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you're on YouTube, hopefully you enjoyed the change of scenery and this double bicep right here that you're missing out if you're not on YouTube. So make sure to follow us on Instagram as well. Give some support for the transformations. Definitely check that one out. I think it's an absolutely amazing transformation. Show us some love there. Lots of great content coming on Instagram too. Lots of giveaways. We're always doing a ton. So support yourself by getting some extra accountability and encouragement by following us over on Instagram to @ColossusFit. We'll see you over there. Peace out.